All right, babies. Let's go ahead and do our second movie. You should be watching this on Monday. So by now you've already have learned two ways how to solve quadratic equations. One was factoring and the other one was with the quadratic formula. So we're going to do the first part of this packet right here. We're only going to do problems 1 through 6, like I told you. After that, you're going to have probably another short worksheet that I'm going to give you to kind of work on your own. It's going to review inequalities. So make sure that you have grabbed both of them. This packet and then the other worksheet that I'm going to show you. Well, let me show you right now just in case you don't have it. Then at the end of the video, since the video is only going to be about 25-30 minutes, go ahead and work with this worksheet right here, okay? So let's go ahead and start. Says Abigail tosses a coin off a bridge into a stream. The distance in feet the coin is above the water is modeled by the equation y equals negative 16x squared plus 96x plus 112, where x represents times in seconds. What is the greatest height of the coin? How much time will it take for the coin to hit the water? Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and define our variables. So x equals times, and this is in seconds, and y equals the height of the coin, and that would be in feet. So what is the greatest height of the coin? Right here it's asking me to calculate the maximum. All right, so to calculate the maximum, you have to calculate the axis of symmetry, and that's negative b divided by 2a. Remember, negative b is your linear term, a is your quadratic, which is negative 16, b is your linear, that would be 96, and then c is your constant, which is 112. Now in here we're not going to use 112 right now, we're just going to use a and b. All right, so that would be equal to negative 96, because that's b, and then 2 times negative 16. So that becomes negative 96 divided by 2 times negative 16, which is negative 32, and that would be 3 when you do it on your calculator. But because we are looking for the axis of symmetry, that would be x, and that is time, so it would be 3 seconds. Now the problem is asking me for height. So what I'm going to have to do, if that is my x, then I'm going to have to plug it in on my original equation. So y equals negative 16x squared plus 96x plus 112. Let's go ahead and substitute the value of x for 3. And then you plug that in your calculator, just like you see it. All right, so that would be negative 16, 3 squared, plus 96, 3, times 3, I'm sorry, plus 112, and that would be, I think I forgot the negative 3 at the beginning. Let me go back. Yep, I sure did. So that would be negative. Let's insert the negative over here. I forgot about it. Negative 16, 3 squared plus 96, 3 times 3 plus 100. It's 112, not 122. And that would be 256 feet. So the highest, the greatest height would be 256 feet. Okay, so we took care of A. Let's go to B. How much time will it take the coin to hit the water? Now, I'm tossing the coin. When I toss the coin goes up, and then it comes down. Now, I'm assuming that this is my water right here. It's your water. I'm going to paint it blue so that you know that that's your water. So what we're looking for is a zero of, I'm sorry, you cannot see it. What we're looking for is a zero of a function. So we can do two things. We can figure out at what point does the y, if I want the height to be 0, then what would be that time? So if height is w, it's y, I'm sorry. When y is 0, basically, what is x? So I have two options. I can go ahead and try to factor that, or I can go straight to the graph. So let's go ahead and go to y equal to and write that equation down. The equation was negative 16x squared plus 96x plus 112. Now I'm going to go to the table. And the table says that there are two values. When y equals 0, not when x equals 0. Y equals 0. Okay, not x, but y. Negative 1. But can you have a negative 1 of a second? No, you cannot. So I'm going to have to find my other 0. There it is. So when y equals 0, x equals 7. So that would be 7 seconds. So 7 seconds after Abigail throws that point, it hits the water again. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and do the second one. All right, use the diagram to the right to solve for the length of AT in simplest radical form. Okay, so I've already kind of helped you out with the diagram. This is a right angle, triangle, and I know that because it has a right angle. And then the arrow pointing away from that 90-degree angle would be my hypotenuse. Now you need to remember the hypotenuse, the Pythagorean theorem. That talks about hypotenuse and the legs of a triangle. This right here would be your hypotenuse. The legs are the ones that make the L. Okay? This right here makes an L. So that theorem says that c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Now, this is my hypotenuse, so that would be my c. And then it doesn't matter the other two legs, which one is a and which one is b. So this would be 6 squared x squared plus 8 minus x squared. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a box. Okay? I'm going to do a box right here. And that would be 8 minus x, I'm sorry, 8 minus x. Okay. So for this square right here, 8 times 8 would be 64. For that square would be negative 8x, and then x squared. And of course you can put this 2 together. Okay? So then that becomes x squared minus 16x plus 64. Now, I can add those two together. 6 squared would be 36. That's 2x squared minus 16x plus 64. Now, I have to make sure that this is on standard form and it's equal to 0, so I'm going to have to move that 36 to the other side. And I do that by subtracting 36. So that will be 0. 2x squared minus 16x, and then 64 minus 36 would be 28. Now, we have to find the length of AT in simplest radical form. Now, if you remember, radical form is a square root. Now, if I factor, I'm not going to find a square root. Plus, I don't think this is plus. I'm sorry. I don't think that I can multiply 28 and give me 16 and then a 2. Now, this has a GCF. But because it's telling me that to do it in simplest radical form, I'm going to go ahead and use my quadratic formula. Okay? So, let's write down the quadratic formula. Minus b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And let's start plugging in. What is my A? My A is my quadratic term, that's 2. My B is my linear term, that's negative 16. And my C is my constant or my y-intercept, which is 28. So let's start plugging in. All right, so then this becomes negative times a negative would be a positive 16. Negative 16 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is 28, divided by 2 times 2. All right, so then that becomes 16 plus negative 16 squared is 256. Negative 4 times 2 times 28 would be negative 224, and 2 times 2 would be 4. Now 256 minus 224 is square root of 32. All right, so now I got to think about two numbers that will multiply to 32, and one of them has a perfect square root. And I believe that 16 times 2 is 32, and then the square root of 16 would be 4, so this ends up being 4 square root of 2. Okay, so now I have 16 plus minus 4 square root of 2 divided by 4. So this is where we divide it into two different ones. Okay, so this is 16 plus minus, I'm sorry, not plus minus, we're going to divide it. So we're going to say plus first and then minus. 16 plus 4 square root of 2 divided by 4, or 16 minus, because I need my coffee, square root of 2 divided by 4. Now that's a common denominator, so I can rewrite this way. Common denominator. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So the only thing that survives on the other side is the square root of 2. Common denominator, so I can go ahead and divide it by both of them. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Minus 4 divided by 4 is 1. I don't need to write it, and that's square root of 2. So my two x's are, my two zeros are 4 plus minus square root of 2. And we are done. So that would be the value of A and T. Are we good? All right, let's go to the next one. Don't worry about the other two. About BA. All right, let's go to number 3. A square and a rectangle have the same area. So let's go ahead and start drawing. I have a square who has the same area as a rectangle. Now what's special about a square is that all sides are equal. The length of the rectangle, 5 inches more than twice the length of the side of the square. So whatever goes after then, you got to write first. Twice the length of the side of the square. You don't know the sides of the square, but you do know that they're the same, so that will be, both of them need to be x. So twice the side of the square, more than 5. The width of the rectangle, 6 inches less than the side of the square. Backward words, side of the square would be x less than 6. Now their areas are the same. So the area of the square, it equals the area of the rectangle. So how do you calculate the area of the square? And the rectangle is length times width. So over here would be x times x. And over here it would be 2x plus 5 times x minus 6. All right, so for x times x, it would be x squared. Now for this, I have to make a box. So let's do this. This one right here, 2x squared minus 12x, 5x, and negative 30. And I can most definitely put those two together. So on the other side, you have 2x squared minus 7x minus 30. Now to make this into equal to 0, you have to say minus x squared. That's canceled. And 0 equals 1x squared minus 7x minus 30. Now, I have to factor. I can either factor or use the quadratic formula. If you can factor, go ahead and factor. It's a lot easier doing it that way. Has to multiply to 30 and add up to negative 7. So if I do negative 10 times 3, that multiplies to negative 30. And when I subtract it, that gives me negative 7. So that will be x minus 10, x plus 3. So my two zeros will be x equals 10 and x equals negative 3. Now, this is where you have to use your common sense. Can you have a length of negative 3 or can you have a length of 10? And most definitely you can have a length of 10 but not of negative 3. So to find the length of the side of the squares have a side length equals 10. Because there's no such thing as a negative 3 for a side length. All right. Let's do the next one. The profit of Mr. Unlucky's company can be represented by the equation y equals negative 3x squared plus 18x minus x, where y is the amount of profit. So x is the, y is the profit. It's in thousands of dollars. That's important. And x is the number of years. He realizes his company is on a downturn and wishes to sell before he ends up in debt. When will Mr. Unlucky's business show the maximum profit? Okay, so if he shows the maximum profit, we're calculating for the maximum, which is your x's of symmetry. Now, if it's profit, when it will be x, because you're looking for at what year. When will be time, so it will be year. So in this one, I'm looking for x. Now, what is the maximum profit? That's for letter B. When it tells me what is it, then that's where I'm looking for money, and that would be y. So let's go ahead and start with A. For A, you have to go ahead and calculate the axis of symmetry, because that's your maximum or your minimum, where your maximum and or your minimum lies. Now, because this opens down, it has a maximum. Okay, so let's see. A is your quadratic term, which is negative 3, and B is your linear term, which is 18. So that negative will turn it into a negative 18, and then this is 2 times negative 3. This is negative 18, negative 6. So when will Unlucky's business show the maximum profit? In 3 years. All right, what about B? What is the maximum profit? Now that I know that x equals 3 and I want to figure out the maximum profit, I need to go to my original equation and plug in that 3. So negative 3x squared plus 18x minus 4. So that will be negative 3 squared plus 18 times 3 minus 4. And when you do that, you get 23 hundredths of And letter C. At what time will it be too late to sell his business? Well, after it reaches its maximum, that's at 23 hundredths of thousands, then it starts going down, which means your profit starts depleting, it starts going down. So after 3 years, you need to sell. You definitely don't want it to hit rock bottom, and definitely after that it would be your negatives. This is where it hits the negative. You don't want it to hit the negative. You want to keep that company until it reaches its maximum profit, and then after that you want to let it go. And don't make me sing the song. All right, are we good? Let's go to the next one, babies. All right, so for number 5, it says, at a swim meet, Janet dives from a diving board that is 48 feet high. Her position above the water is represented by the equation h of t negative 16t squared plus 24t plus 40, where t represents times in seconds and h of t represents height in feet. So x equals time. If you've noticed, x is usually time and y is usually height. 99% of the time that x is going to be time, 90% of the time that y is going to be height, okay? So after how many seconds does Janet enter the water? So what are we looking for over here? Okay, so let's think about this. Let's make a little diagram. So there's your water. So she's over here, looking pretty with her swimsuit. She's diving in, so she's going to go and hit the water. So when do I hit the water? I hit that water when I can find my zero, when I can find my x-intercept, the zeros of the function, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to factor this little puppy out or use the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and try the first one, because I would rather much factor than use the quadratic formula. I'm just substituting the t's by x's. It really doesn't matter. First would be your GCF, and it has a GCF of 8. Negative 2x squared plus 3x plus 5. Now, factors of 2 would be 2 and 1. Factors of 5 would be 5 and 1. So that's pretty easy because the factors are pretty easy to figure out. So there should be a negative number over here. So I'm going to have to do 2 times 1 and 5 times 1. If I do negative 2 times 1, that would be negative 2. If I do 5 times 1, that would be 5. And when I take that away, that's a 3. And that's exactly what I want in the middle. All right. So then this would be negative 2x and x. I need to multiply that. The 5 and the 1 do not multiply, so that means they need to be in the same parentheses. So I want the 5 and this one and the 2 and that one, okay? If you're not sure, let's go ahead and box it. Okay, so this is minus 2x squared, minus 2x, 5x, and 5. And remember, I'm looking for what's inside the parentheses, not the original one. And that's I have my negative 2x, I have my 5, and that's most definitely 5x, okay? So now I need to equal those two 0. 2x plus 5 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. So I'm going to take away 1 on both sides over here, and x equals negative 1. And then I'm going to do minus 5 on both sides. So negative 2x equals negative 5. And then I'm going to divide by negative 2. And my other 0 would be 5 halves, which is 2.5. Now x is time, so those would be seconds. Now, would you pick negative 1 or would you pick 2.5? Most definitely what? 2.5 seconds. Okay? All right, so what about letter B? What is the greatest height Janet reaches in her dive? For her greatest height is her axis of symmetry. So let's go ahead and calculate her axis of symmetry. Okay, her A is her quadratic term, which is negative 16, and her B is her linear term, which is 24. Now that negative, we'll change that 24 into a negative 24, and that's 2 times negative 16. So that becomes negative 24, negative 32, and a calculator can simplify this, and it is 3/4 of a second, or 0.75 seconds. So what is the greatest height Janet reaches in her dive? So if we're looking for the greatest height, we're looking for y, not x. This is my x. When x equals 0.75, basically, what is y? So I still haven't finished. Now I need to go back to my original equation and plug in that x. So it will be negative 16. Instead of the t, I'm going to write down 0.75 squared plus 24 times 0.75 plus 40. And when you do all that, you get that it is 49 feet. So this is my answer for letter B. Oh, you can see that. I'm sorry. 49 feet. 49, 49, 49. All right, letter C says, how long will it take to reach the maximum height? Well, we already know that. The maximum height will take her 3/4 of seconds, which is the same thing as 0.75 seconds. So the highest height is 49 feet that can be reached. Sorry, that can be reached at 0.75 seconds. Those are the answers for B and C. All right, the last one for today. This is Monday's class. Use the following diagram to solve the length of all three sides in triangle SUN. Okay, so I need to do all of them. So again, Pythagorean theorem. Angle opposite, always look for that 90-degree angle. Draw an arrow opposite to it. That's your hypotenuse. And then I'm going to say that this is my A and that this is my B. Okay? So the theorem says, Pythagorean theorem says that C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So let's see what C squared is. 4x minus 3, and that would be square. Equal. Sorry. My A would be x, and that would be square, plus my B is 3x plus 3 squared. Now I have to do two boxes over here, okay? I'm going to come over here to this corner and do both of them. So 4x, negative 3, 4x, negative 3. Okay, this box right here, 16x squared. This one right here, negative 12x. That one right there, negative 12x, and then that one would be 9. And I can most definitely add those two. So on this side of the equation, I get 16x squared minus 24x plus 9, and that equals x squared. Now I have to go ahead and work that second box for over here. All right. So that box is 3 times 3, 9, and x times x, x squared, 9x, 9x, and 3 times 3 would be 9. And I can most definitely add those two. So to that other side, I get plus 9x squared plus 18x plus 9. Now, this over here would be 10x squared. Now I have to move everything to the same side so that I can have it equal to 0. So I'm going to say minus 10x squared minus 18x minus 9, because I moved all of these to the other side. Got rid of it. So now I have 0 on this side. 16x squared minus 10x squared would be 6x squared. Negative 24x and negative 18x would be negative 42x, and then those are canceled, so I'm done. Okay? Now let's factor so that I can figure out what x is. GCF is always your first step. GCF over here would be 6x. So I have x minus 7, and that should be equal to 0. So now I have 6x equals 0, which when you divide by 6, you get that x equals 0, but there's no such thing as a length of 0. So it has to be this guy over here, which you do plus 7, and x equals 7. So this is my answer. So now let's figure out all the sides. A would be 7. Let me go ahead and do the picture again so that I can do it over here. That was x, 4x minus 3, and 3x plus 3. And I know that the value of x is 7. So this is 7. This is 4 times 7 minus 3. That equals 25. And this is 3 times 7 plus 3. That equals 24. Now, so this was letter A. That was letter A. 24 was letter B. And then my hypotenuse was 25. Now, so far, I think I'm correct because the hypotenuse needs to be the highest number. It's the longest side. But I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I did this right. And the way that I can do this right is that c squared needs to be equal to the addition of the squares of a and b. So this would be 25 squared equals 7 squared plus 24 squared. Now I grab my calculator and I say, what is 25 squared? That would be 625. 7 squared is 49, and 24 squared is 576. If this add up to 625, I'm good to go. I did it correctly. So 49 plus 576, that's 625. So this checks out. So I am very happy because I did it right. All right, babies. That is the last one for today's class. That was about 35 minutes of class. So what I need you to do right now is take this worksheet. You have 6 problems. That's it. You make sure you graph the systems of inequality. So this is what you need to be doing now. Miss you guys like crazy. I will see you Wednesday.